There we go. Hello, everybody. So we are a small everybody today, but happy to have Elise from our early childhood mental health consultation team joining us today to talk about some um, some great ideas and things supporting children in the classroom. So I won't speak for you, Elise, but I'm going to turn the table over to you, and certainly let me know if I can do anything while you're presenting. But I'll let you go.
Thanks, Amanda. Hi, my name is Elise Barford. My pronouns are she, her. I am a mental health consultant here at FPAC. I might have visited your school, maybe not. There's three of us. A little bit about me is I have been a trauma therapist for about 15 years with children. I started off working with like the Tennyson Center and Shiloh House. I worked mainly with refugees for a while. And I was working mainly with children that were early teens, late kind of childhood of in group homes. And so what that kind of meant is I was dealing with a lot of trauma work and trying to backtrack a lot. And so that kind of brought me into early childhood mental health is where how can we do a preventative piece? How can we work with children so that they don't they can process trauma, they can be in a safe environment. So that way, when they are teenagers, we're not so far along where we're in intensive group homes and dealing with severe trauma. And that's what brought me to early childhood education and mental health. Um, I'm not sure if either of you guys have had a mental health consultation inside your organization before, but we offer kind of three or four different types of cases. We are completely state funded, so it's completely free for your organization to have us come in and do mental health programming. So first we have like an overall, first we have like child-based cases. So that's when you're in a classroom and all of the things that you've tried isn't working. And you're just seeing your teacher kind of at, a burnout state with this child and you aren't quite sure where to go. That's when you call mental health consultation to come in. And what we can do is work with the parents, work with the teacher, and really kind of understand what the child is going through, how we can do supportive services, how we can connect them, psychoeducation for the parents, parenting classes for the parents. And so what we do is when we have a child case come in, we offer this kind of full encompassing support system for the educator, for the director, for the school, for the parents, for the child, for the grandparents, just this whole way to kind of support this child. Another case that you can also have is a classroom case. Sometimes it is with a burnt out teacher who is just, at their limit and they have, a difficult class maybe that year. And what we do is we can come into the classroom and we help support classroom management. We help support behaviors. We help role model kind of these new techniques that are kind of coming out through science and neuroscience on the best way for child development. And so what we do is we educate, we model, we are there to support. It is a very supportive environment. It is never in any way critique or criticize or judgmental. We always come in a non-judgmental space. But we are there to, in the end, like our job is to prevent burnout with teachers and directors. And that's what our job is there to do a classroom case is to support your teachers, find those resources, you have parents who aren't responding. Let's have a difficult conversation and practice how having difficult conversation with teachers can be, or with parents, because we know that parent conversations can be very hard. And so what we could do is come in and practice those conversations with your teachers. So this is a more classroom based. This is how we can send home how to play with your children at home, and you can send that home with resources to your all your parents. And then we also offer program-wide cases. That's where we work with the directors specifically, and we come in and we talk about teacher retention. We talk about how teachers can feel fulfilled within their job and career. How about these new teachers that are coming in that are young, who are just children themselves and 18, 19 years old, and now are expected to be with children, right? Like that can be a really difficult transition. So our job in the program-wide case is how do we support behaviors within the classrooms, and how do we support these teachers so that way they want to show up every day, that when it's hard they still want to come back, that they're at bat for you, for the organization, for these kids. And so we kind of offer these three different mental health consultation programs that you can get a referral for. We also offer PD, which is professional development. We can come into your schools and we can do what I'm doing right now is I just did at a school. It's called Back to Basics on Behaviors. And it's just an introduction. And I taught the whole school an hour of PD training that was signed certificate and everything on how to just even the basics of behavior. Where is behavior coming from? Where is that child who cannot regulate? Why are they being that way? And so it's kind of just a basic knowledge. We also do like self-care. We also do trauma informed training. There are so many trainings that we provide as well. So that's kind of just the overview of what mental health consultation is if you haven't had that yet into your organization. I'm about to start a presentation. I'll keep it short. We won't go the full hour. I know that there's only a few of us here and I want to be respectful that you guys came and I really appreciate that. But I want to talk a little bit about children's mental health and then why I have a job is because children's mental health is directly correlated between the caregiver's mental health and the child's mental health. So that means your mental health as an educator, the parent's mental health, all of that correlates to how the mental health is for a child. So I want that to really sink in. So that means if you're not doing well and your mental health is not well, and you are sitting there with children, little children who are just sponges and absorbing everything you're doing, your mental health affects their mental health. If you're radiating tension off of them, guess who's absorbing all that tension, right? So that's like the first thing that I don't think a lot of people understand is that the primary caretaker of a child's mental health is correlated to the mental health of this child. So if you are happy and you are feeling good and you are feeling yourself, the child sees that in you and they're absorbing all of that from you. And so it's really important that we take care of ourselves. And we're going to go through that as when we talk more about that and the importance of our mental health, because that affects other people's mental health around us, and especially these young children. The second thing I want to point out about children's mental health is your language becomes their self-talk. So we have little kids who don't know how to talk yet, right? And they're just learning and they're learning from their environment around them. They don't have a voice in their head that says, I'm amazing. I am so good at blocks today. They don't have that in their voice yet. They're learning through language, they're learning through speech on having those self-talks. So when you say things like, oh my goodness, you are so good at blocks. I am so good at blocks. If you say things like, I can't believe you did that. What was wrong with you? Oh, what is wrong with me? So what we're doing is that our language, our voice, it becomes their voice. And so we need to practice on the way we say things. And as a mother myself, I have a really hard time with this because I am a strict mother by nature. And so sometimes when I get elevated, I will say that to my 6-year-old son. I'd be like, what are you thinking right now? And then he's like, I don't know what I'm thinking, Mom. And that's what I'm talking about, is that's his self-talk now, is what was I thinking? Instead of what I could have said something differently of, I see that you made this choice. Can you tell me more about why you made that choice? And he's like, oh, okay, I need to go through the choices and think back why I decided to do that. And so those are the two things that is really important of children mental health that I want us to like kind of take away. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. We are going to do a behavior basics. Let me see. Part. Sorry for 1 second. Start from beginning. All right, I'm ready. Okay, so let's talk about what motivates us. This is where behavior starts from. Okay, so we start with the fact that Maslow hierarchy of needs. This is our motivation. This is what gets us going. This is how we do. So first, we're going to start with our psychological needs. This is air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing. This is everything that we need to function, for our body to function, right? And so those are our first needs that need to be met. Second is safety needs, personal security, resources, health. This is just something to understand is you have to think about extreme trauma, for example. Let's take, people in Gaza right now. Air, water, food, shelter. They are trying to meet their basic needs. And guess what they're going to do to sacrifice to get those needs? Their safety. So we move up into that Maslow hierarchy needs is like they need food and water to feed their kids. So they're going to sacrifice their safety to go find that. They're going to go out there and find that. So if that kind of understands on what motivates us, what motivates our actions. Once our air, food, and water, all those basic needs are met, then we move up to safety, right? We need to keep ourselves safe. We need to keep our family safe. We need to keep our family fed. So we need employment to feed our family, right? We need resources. We need health. We need to keep our immediate family safe. Next is love and belonging and connection, right? So the first psychological needs and safety needs are kind of our survival state of the brain, right? And now we're moving up to love and belonging and connectedness and self-esteem, how we feel about ourselves. Guess what? We're not thinking about how we feel about ourselves if we don't have food or water, right? We're not caring about that. That is not motivating us to have behavior. So we need to make sure that we hit all of these things, and then eventually to self-actualization, that self-awareness of where your place is in the universe, right? So when we're thinking about children and their needs that need to be met, I want you to think about this hierarchy of needs. Are these needs being met? Think about the word hangry. Is the fact that when a child or when I don't get enough food, I am going to be snappy, right? My expression of self is I need to feed myself, right? It might not be exactly, I can't maybe not say that, especially a child's not going to be like, I'm hungry and that's why I'm angry. Nobody fed me this morning. They might need that. So our job as educators, as care providers, is to figure that out. Like, what is that need trying? What is that behavior communicating? So that is what behavior is. All behavior is a form of communication. What is your kiddo trying to tell you? Same with tantrums. Is that unmet need is being expressed? I am starving. We have all seen that child. And food is almost an easy one because that's like, okay, are they hungry? Are they tired? You kind of go through those basic ones because those are the basic needs that need to be met, right? So tantrums are an unmet need being expressed. I am upset. I cannot tell you why I'm upset, but I am so upset and you need to figure out what it is. So saying to a child, calm down, that's enough. What are we saying to that child? That their need is not important. Enough, you know how to behave in here. What are we telling that kid? What is their self-talk going to be when we say that to them? You need to keep quiet because your needs are not important enough to be met right now. So we need to acknowledge these tantrums. We need to acknowledge this form of communication to really understand. The behavior is the symptom of the real problem. All right, I'm going to go quickly through some neuroscience. We're going to talk about what we talked about a second ago, survival state. So when a child, and this applies to adults too, this applies to you as well, survival state, right? Fight or flight. Our body is triggered by some type of threat. So our body releases cortisol and releases adrenaline into our bodies. And that shuts down almost everything out of our body except for in creating more alertness in our brain. So think about like your digestive slows down, right? Think about when you hear about that mother who can all of a sudden pick up a truck off a child and they have amazing strength. That is survival state. Your body takes all of its energy into surviving. So that means that we're not worried about being cool. We're not worried about being liked by our friends. We're not worried about all this other stuff because we are unsafe. We need to fight. We need to flee. We need to freeze. We need to survive. And when a child is in a survival state, that is when physical aggression comes out. Think about a scared, abused dog, right? What is the first thing a scared, abused dogs do when they are unsafe and scared and abused? They fight, they growl, they act out, they try to bite you because that is what their survival state is telling them. It is same for a child, is when you find a very physically aggressive child, it's usually because they don't know how to get out of a survival state. They have been living in the survival state so long that their body doesn't know how to live without cortisol and adrenaline in their body. The survival state is, am I safe? And I think we can all think back on some children that lived in this survival state where they just didn't feel safe. They didn't know how to feel safe. The next part of state of the brain is emotional state. This is also unconscious, right? So the survival state is something that we do unconsciously, same with emotional state. This is about connectedness. This is where your buttons get pushed. This is that like your emotion, you're reactive. This is like something triggers you and you know this always triggers you And so your first reaction is that immediate, like, snap where you lose your mind all of a sudden and you don't know what happened. You blacked out and you said something really mean you didn't mean to say. That's you in an emotional state. That's you in this state of brain. This is where we critical in our speech. This is when we're criticizing ourselves. And it doesn't even make sense. Girl, you know you're not good at that. I don't even know why you tried. That's you living in your emotional state. I feel rejected. Someone makes you feel a certain way. Blame, guilt, verbal aggression. You get mad at yourself and mad at others. When you can't figure out why you're getting mad at everyone around you and you're just like super triggered, that's you in your emotional state of the brain. Am I loved? Am I connected? This is where a child is having screaming and yelling and verbal attacks. This is when you see a child who cannot regulate themselves. They cannot stop crying. They can't stop getting so upset over this one thing. It's because they're living in this emotional state. Okay, last state is executive state. This is where we all wish we lived all the time. This is our higher center of brain. This is conscious. This is reasoning, optimal alertness, executive skills, overriding impulses, productive self-talk. What can I learn from this situation? This is that higher learning. This is where we want to work and get the kids to is we want to get them out of survival state. We want them to feel connected and we want to get them to learn from how we can grow from this situation. So I just wanted to give you the basis here. We're going to go back to this. I'm going to show you how to solve and get us out of the survival state, out of emotional state, and bring us all into executive state. So when I get to that there, but I wanted to give you a little background on the neuroscience of where behavior comes from. Does anyone have any questions? I know that this is kind of a complex section. Okay. Um, I know that this is very popular, but I wanted to make sure that we talked about it was the ABCs of understanding um, behaviors in the classroom. So understanding the A, antecedent, what happens before the behavior occurs. B is the behavior, and C is the consequent. What happens immediately after the behavior occurs helps us understand the function of the behavior. So this is when you're trying to figure out patterns within your own classroom, within your own school, is you do the ABCs. I know that a lot of teachers already do this, which is wonderful because it shows patterns. It shows us, hey, I can't figure out why this kid keeps hitting his friends and throwing a tantrum every time we want to do something. And then you look at the pattern, you're like, oh, it's transitions. This child's really struggling with this transition. What can we do to really support this child to not react and go into, we're in an executive state, transitions happen, and all of a sudden he can't get out of the survival state or the emotional state. This person can't regulate. So what can we do to support this child to help them through transitions? So, understanding the ABCs, this is the antecedent is what cause. It can be verbal, such as a teacher giving a command or request. It can be physical, such as a toy or a light or a sound. An antecedent may come from the environment, from another person, or be internal, like a thought or feeling. A resulting behavior, this is the person's response or lack of response to the antecedent. It can be an action, a verbal response, or something else. Most of the time, you will see an action. And then this is the consequence. This is what comes directly after the behavior. It includes positive reinforcement of the desired behavior or no reaction or incorrect, inappropriate behaviors and responses. Consequences aren't always negative. So this is also your reaction or the teacher's reaction in there. So that way we can see what's working and doesn't working. Some kids need that strong length or that strong authoritative voice, soft and kind, but still like, my friend, what are the rules in our classroom? Can you please repeat them to myself or to me? Thank you. Yes, thank you for repeating them. Very good. I'm not being mean, but I have an assertive voice. I'm commanding of that. Hey, what are our rules in our classroom? Can you please repeat them to me? And some kids get triggered by that. Some kids are like, oh my God, is my teacher mad at me? And so some kids need a little bit more of a softer approach of, hi, my friend, what are we doing right now? Is that what we're supposed to be doing? So you need to read your kids. We need to know what works and doesn't work. The whole mentality of, one size fit all is not what works anymore. And we've found that that is not how it works. And so it is hard being an educator, knowing that you have to kind of differentiate with different children. And that is hard. And I am not saying that is not hard. I'm not saying that this is going to be easy. it is the reality of these children is that we don't all fit in this box, and that some kids need softer approaches and some kids need a little bit tougher approaches, and that's all okay. And we're all just trying to figure it out and make it work. So in your own classrooms, what are the behaviors do you see the most? What do you think these antecedents are? Like what causes them in your behavior or in the classrooms you see? You can share if you'd like. I'll give a minute to see if anybody wants to share about what behaviors you see more often in your classrooms. Okay, so how do we get more positive behavior in the classrooms? Okay, so we first need to create choices. First, then language, be consistent, focus on one behavior at a time, and when in doubt, take a mini timeout. I'm just flying by this through you guys, so if you want me to slow down, please let me know. Let's see. Okay, create choices, foster independent, instills ensures control. I love this one. This is my favorite thing to do is because both options are the right options, usually. So it's you are okay with both options, but then it gives the child a sense of control. Think of being told what to do all the time. You're just a child, right? Like you can't make decisions for yourself. And like they're told all the stuff all the time about how you're just a little kid. We want to empower these children, right? To make choices, to be okay with making a choice. Think about how many adults you know who can't even pick out a restaurant to go eat at, me included, right? Like we never were allowed to make choices as children. So now as adults, I'm sitting here with decision paralysis because there's too many choices for me. Give the children opportunities to make choices, to find it within themselves to make a choice, right? This fosters independence. To us, it might seem inconsequential if it's like, milk or if it's water. And it's not a big deal to us, but to them, it's huge. Think about your own household, right? You know your kid needs to wear clothes. Okay, do you want the blue shirt or the green shirt? Because I'm okay with both. You can choose, buddy, whatever shirt you want to walk out of this door with. Create two choices that work with you. I see you want to play outside right now, but right now we are inside. So you either can one, play at the sensory bin, or two, sit and read a book at the quiet table. Which do you think you can do until we go outside? So we still acknowledge that they want to go do something completely else. So we acknowledge their feelings. I see you. I hear you. That's how we pull them out of those the sorry, the survival state and the connectedness state is by seeing them. I hear you. I see you. I see you want to go outside. I see that you are so upset about this. I know we're not going to go out. So what should we do until we go outside? Okay, we'll go outside in 20 minutes. Should we go do this or should we go play over here? Which would you prefer? I like both of them. You want to go? Okay, great choice, my friend. And so it's a very supportive thing. It's not like, hey, we're not going to talk until you calm down. It's, hey, I see you're so upset about this. This is the grandma's rule, if and if then. The idea if then is that people will be more likely to engage in a less desirable behavior if the opportunity to do something they enjoy is provided afterward. This is called incentive, friends. We all live and die on this rule. Is if you clean up the house, then you can have your extra drink after work. If you go outside and play with your friends, then maybe you can have some dessert. It's if and then, and we all live and breathe this. So you do it every day, I do it every day, kids do it every day. It works really, really well. And that's why it is so popular, is that incentive. I know you don't want to finish your homework, but if you finish your homework, maybe you can go play outside afterwards. If and then. This is the hardest one for everybody, is being consistent. Small daily improvements are the key to staggering long-term results. And the thing about behavior change is it takes weeks. So like, let's say you have a behavioral issue in your classroom and you start making changes today. You're not going to see a result tomorrow. You're not going to see a result in a week, but you come in each day and you do the same thing and you are consistent. And you might see the child get worse at first, because what happens is when behavior changes, we balk, we revolt in our brain of like, no, 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 no. The pathway in my brain goes left, left, right, left. That's the way it needs to go. I'm going to revolt at first. And so you're like, this isn't working. And so that's when we quit. That's when we're like, this isn't working. I'm all done. all done, friends. But that means it is working because we have to go through that hump before we get to behavior change. Behavior change is reliant on us being consistent. You have to be consistent. If you are making this change, you have to make that change within yourself because the child needs you to be consistent. Every time they react the certain way and you're changing the way you respond and hope that he changes the way he reacts, you got to be consistent every time. I know this is going to work. I know that love, connectedness, and understanding works. I need to keep being consistent. It takes anywhere from like 17 days to several months for consistency to change your brain development. That means that what happens is that the more you're consistent, it might take 7 pathways to get to that end goal in your brain. But when you keep are consistent for 2 weeks, now what your brain is doing is forming a new pathway in your brain to get there faster. So now it might have taken 20 minutes to get the child to do something that you needed them to do. But by the end of the 2 weeks, it might only take like 2 minutes. You have to be consistent. You have to have that faith in yourself because it is hard. It is hard that after 2 weeks or a week and a half of them crying every time and you haven't seen a change to still be consistent. So remember, every day it's that small thing of you just being consistent. The other thing is focusing on one behavior at a time. This child might have like 4 different things you need to work on. But what happens is sometimes one behavior, especially in a dysregulated life, if they go home and they aren't seen or heard at home, we all have children like that where they pretty much live at the school, right? They're dropped off at 6:30 in the morning and they're not picked up until 6:30 at night sometimes. And the only interaction they're really getting from a caregiver is at school. And so when they go home and they're not heard and they're not listened to and they're not loved on, then they're having this dysregulation at home sometimes, right? And so they come back into the school and there can be several behaviors present at that time because of stuff that is happening at home. And so it's focusing on one behavior at a time. We're not going to solve world problems with all of this child, but maybe maybe they're not getting enough sleep at night. Maybe there's not a bedtime routine at night and they're not getting any sleep. So let's focus on one behavior at a time. Maybe we figure it out. It is part of the sleep. And then we get more sleep. And now all of the behaviors are better. The point is that we can't sit there and you labeling a kid and being like, well, he's wrong. He does this, and this is labeling the child as bad. And we don't do that, right? We need to sit there and be like, okay, well, the top thing I'm struggling with right now is that this child is not being safe with other children. He also fights, he also tries to run, and he also does that, and sideways. But what our biggest issue is this, and that's what we need to focus on, is what the most disruptive one is in your life and in their life. Think about the ages and the stages your kiddos are in. So some behaviors are normal, right? So I actually have I've been called in a lot of times for 1-year-olds for mental health consultation because they bite. But if we all know 1-year-olds are full of these big old molars coming in that look painful to even me, and they can't express that, right? And so we need to remember some things are developmental. Infants crying to express needs, hungry, tired. You're not going to sit there and call it a behavioral issue when an infant is crying because they're tired or they're hungry, right? So some of it is just like, oh, this is what infants do to meet their needs. Toddlers, teething and biting is more normal to relieve pain, right? So when they're biting, when they're teething and stuff like that, they're trying to gnaw on things. And also toddlers explore the world through their mouths too, right? They stick blocks in there. Oh, this is a weird texture. Oh, this is cold. Oh, that's fluffy. Like they explore with their mouth, right? And so it's showing them what's appropriate and inappropriate kind of to do. But again, it's not necessarily a behavioral issue. Preschool, pushing friends and using hands to test boundaries. That's very normal for preschool is finding that independence is I'm trying to figure out what works and doesn't work. Same with pre-K, more independent desire to control over decisions made. Pre-K's classrooms are the best because you have everyone with all these little opinions on what they want to do and these newfound exploration skills. And it is like herding cats sometimes in pre-K because everyone has their own ideas and everyone's so excited and just about life and exploration. So remember some of this stuff of like, oh, this kid's really bossy. Well, this kid is also learning how to grow up and how to find their voice in the world. And so how do we support that instead of calling it a problem behavior? All right. So when in doubt, take a mini timeout. So this is I'm talking to you educators. I am talking to us as care providers. Is role model asking for space in front of your kids. This is for you to be like, oh, Miss Elise has just had a long, heavy day and she just needs a second. Have you ever had that when you just need a second? Yeah, Miss Elise just needs a second. Look, why don't you guys go find a book while Miss Elise just takes 2 minutes to herself so that she can take deep breaths. Do you have any good recommendation for deep breaths? Oh, that one? Okay, I'll do the balloon one. Thank you for your suggestion. All right, I'll see you in a few minutes. But what you're doing is one, you're asking for space yourself, is I need a second before I lose my mind and say things I don't want to say. Two is you're role modeling that it's okay to ask for space. It's okay if we're overwhelmed. You don't need to hit your friend if you're overwhelmed because I am showing you it's okay to be like, I've had enough. I'm okay right now. I just need a second. Use positive language to express feeling overwhelmed that you need a break. Communicate with other teachers and staff about your need for a second. This is a big one that I think we forget to do is being able to talk to our team. We're being educators and care providers is one of the most difficult jobs in America right now. You guys have a very, very difficult job and you need to be part of a team where you feel supported and you can ask for that help because it feels lonely out there some days. And it's hard. I mean, we underpaid, overworked, underappreciated, but let's raise the next generation for everybody, right? So you need to have people that you can be like, it's a day. I need someone to see me. I need someone to connect to me on a human level before I burn this place down. Like I just need something. I have there was this one teacher I was talking to about this once, and the environment was only so at the school, but she had one other teacher there that she really loved. And so what they do is they find each other before the kids came in and have a pep talk. Girl, did you get new eyelashes? Because they look so good today. The kids are going to think they're just going to be so amazed by you. They're going to think Beyonce walked in here. And then the other girl's like, yes, queen. And they sit there and they talk like that to each other, just pumped up of like, did you get a new skirt? Because I'm loving that skirt on you right now. And they just sit there and like talk each other up. And they like, you would think they were heading to the club, like that they're sitting there doing their makeup together. But that's how they go in. And they're like, you're going to kill today. Way to go. And that is their motivation before they walk into a classroom because they don't necessarily get along with a ton of the other staff, but they need that connection. They need that pump up of like, girl, you got this. I do got this. Thank you. Thank you. And that's what we need sometimes is we need a pump up man. We need our own pump up man every day. You need to have somebody that you can be like, I need a second. I need to go find my pump up man before I go cry in my car by myself. Tag in, tag out with your co-teacher. This is a big one. I see a lot of trouble in classrooms where the lead teacher doesn't feel like they can take a break because the co-teacher doesn't step up as much. And then the co-teacher is like, well, I don't want to overstep my boundaries with the lead teacher. And I'm having this conversation everywhere right now. And so what my suggestion is that you need to get a unified teaching together is you need to have it out of what are your roles and responsibilities and what are my roles and responsibilities? What is my code word when I need to leave and I'm in the middle of being overwhelmed? So that way they know there needs it and they need to work together. And this whole like, I don't want to step on her shoes and like they're not doing much and things like that. Like there's too many kids to be divided in a classroom, you guys. So let's get the teachers together. Let's get them have each role like signed out so nobody's confused. There's no stress of like, oh, should I not do that? There's too much stress in the classroom without not knowing your own role. So my professional advice is to get the role set up, get them unified as a team. They need to be yin and yang to each other. Their strengths, and that's how it needs to go because again, it is hard and you need them to be your support system. And then when in doubt, have a backup activity that gives you a break. Now, we all know there are times in the classroom where we are maxed out, right? We have done everything we could for that day. Literally do not have another word I could physically speak to get through this day. You need to have that backup activity. I don't know what's allowed in your guys' center if you are allowed to turn on Bluey, but that one is always a classic. And I learned a lot as a caregiver from Bandit and Chili myself. So just those kinds of things is you need something. Like I'm not saying doing it every day. I'm not even saying doing it once a week. I am saying that I've hit my limit as a teacher this day. I need something in the background that I feel safe and okay and not shamed about for letting my kids do that day when I just couldn't meet up because it's a lot. We give a lot of ourselves to caregive. There's a lot of us giving. Okay, creating a yes environment over a no environment. When you say to a child, stop running, stop running, stop running, excuse me, stop running. What are the only words you just heard me say? Was running. Stop fighting. Things like that is stop pushing, stop pushing. Are you allowed to push, 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 push? Right? So we need to change the way we're saying things. Instead of saying stop running, oh, what are the rules in the classroom? We use walking feet in here, don't we? We do. Thank you. Instead of don't push, where should we keep our hands? I like asking questions more because then they have to respond back to you. And then that's getting their brain working. They're no longer ignoring you because they have to respond. What are the rules of the classroom about our hands? Do we keep them in the air like crazy people? No. Do we sit there and touch our neighbors? No. What else can we do with it? Oh, we have them in our lap. Okay. So I like to have an interaction to them so that they're telling me the right answer instead of me telling them the answer. Okay, know our limitations. Can you read minds? No, we cannot. We do not know what's going on in the home. We have no idea if the parent decided not to feed their child that day, right? Like that morning, maybe the child was fussy and they didn't have time for breakfast, and now you're having a child come in with no food, and you have no idea. You are not a psychic. You can't control everything, right? So you need to give yourself some grace, and you give the child some grace of like, oh, poor guy, did you not have any he said he didn't have any food this morning. Oh, no wonder he's been acting a fool all morning, right? Like we need to be forgiving of ourselves and of the child, right? When these kind of things happen. We don't have a magic wand. Like I said before, is change takes a lot of time. And guess what? You don't have control over everything. So like you can make changes in the classroom, but then they go back in home and they're having a whole different atmosphere where maybe it's not as conducive to learning and growth and love. Right. So there's only so much you can do. We're limited. The next thing I want to say is we need to know our own biases. Know what triggers you. Are you somebody who gets overwhelmed by loud noises? Are you somebody who's triggered by whining, like in particular whining? What about a kid who hits or a kid who uses foul language? Know your own triggers. Know what gets you caught up in that emotional state where you're reactive. Your first thing is 0 to 100. Know your own triggers. The second is know your own biases. This is a big one. That kid reminds me of my own child. I get that a lot where parents are like, well, I kind of have a soft spot for that kid because it reminds me of my kid a little bit. That's a bias. That's something you need to be aware of because that means you're playing favoritisms on some sort or that kind of stuff. It's just something to know. Or like you hold another kid up to that. Well, I have a 2-year-old and they don't behave anything like this. This kid shouldn't behave this way. Nope. This kid wears designer clothes and I can't afford that. Right? We're all teachers, right? Like some kids come in with this entitlement and that triggers us. That's a bias. This kid overeats and it triggers my eating disorder. These are just some of these biases that you need to know about yourself because that's going to cause a reaction out of you. And you need to know that ahead of time. Okay, so behavior change starts with us. Our language becomes their self-talk. That's what we were talking about earlier, is making sure that when we use our language, try to use it in a positive way instead of a negative way. So that way their self-talk isn't, man, what was I thinking? Well, I knew better. Oh, God, what was I? It's just those are the words they start saying to themselves. I cannot stress this enough to you, but self-care is so important for you as educators and directors. Like, please take care of yourselves because, again, the more you take care of yourself, the more you can take care of these children. We all know the bucket filling book. We all talk about that book. It's an amazing book. We need to be able to fill our buckets because we cannot fill all of these children's buckets, all of the directors, all the parents you need to talk to and be calm for, and all of these things. You can't do any of that if you don't take care of yourself. How are you supposed to give to everyone else's bucket if your bucket's empty? Kids observe your relationship, and that is where they learn how to interact with others. Saying oops and correcting ourselves when we find ourselves elevated or react negatively. This one's huge. I'm assuming most of us were raised in a similar generation, but how many people ever heard their parents say, I'm sorry? How many adults do you know right now that say, or actually struggle with saying I'm sorry? How many people do you know how to go to therapy to learn to say I'm sorry? Right? Like this is not easy for us because we were kind of raised in this generation where it was hard for my I think if my mom said I was sorry right now, I'd pass out and die out of shock. So what we need to do, and something I'm very aware of, is breaking that generational parenting thing of like, I say sorry a lot to my kids because I want them to be able to say they're sorry. I want them to have partners one day and be able to apologize to them for doing something wrong. It's about being self-aware of knowing that it's okay to apologize because that just means we're growing as people. If we don't make mistakes, then we stay the same. We need to make mistakes and we need to, and that's how kids grow is by making mistakes. So have them make mistakes, but you show them how to apologize. Let's say we do get mad. Oh my goodness, you know we don't play with that right now. You guys, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to react that way. Whew. That just got me in my feels all of a sudden. Give me a second. Let me take a deep breath. Whew. Hi, I'm sorry. Do you guys forgive me? I'm sorry I said that like that. Okay, how do you think I should have said it differently? Oh, guys, well, what are the rules in the classroom? Let's try to figure out a new way we can approach this or, change the way you say it. But apologizing is genius, you guys. This is how we raise these kids to be empathetic and compassionate and make mistakes and grow and want to make those mistakes so they can grow and learn more. But it starts with us and how we can apologize and show them it's okay to make mistakes. It's a we, not them and us. So it's instead of saying that child has a problem, it's we have some behavior concerns we are addressing in the classroom. It's not a them, it's not a their issue, it's not an at home thing. It's a we. And you talk to the parents, it's not like, hey, you have an issue you got to deal with. It's hey, we've noticed some things in the classroom that we really want to work with you with. And I use only we talk, right? We're in a group thing, right? That's how you get parents on board with these behavior changes is the we talk. And then finally, teaching versus punishment. This is, let me show you how to do this. The best is when we're like, you know how to behave. Do they? Did you teach them how to behave that way in that kind of situation? Because I didn't. They're not, they're not, magic. They can't create things out of nothing. We need to teach them. Teach them. I saw that you responded this way to your friend. Is that how you think that was kind? Well, how do you think maybe we should? Oh, you don't know? Let me show you. Let's practice. Why don't you say, Jeffrey, can I please have that when you're done? Jeffrey, can I please have that? That was so nicely done. Thank you for asking so nicely. So instead of being like, don't do that, we don't act that way. It's, hey, let me show you how to act. Let's practice together. Let's work in a team. Why don't we get a couple kids together and we all can practice together? Okay, so this is how we get out of how we get to the problem solving state, how we can even get through to the kids. So let's say the kids in the survival state. They're in the corner, they're screaming, they're shut down, but they are not processing anything in front of them. The first thing we do is notice and breathe. I use boys because I only have boy children, so it's my natural reaction. So I apologize for that. But what I would say to my son Paxton is like, "Oh, Pax, I see that your your teeth are super clenched and you can't stop crying, and you have look at those big old tears, my friend. Look at those tears. Oh, are you sad? Oh, and then look at you're white knuckled, and I can just see are your hands doing this? And then they look at you because you're acting the way they are and you're showing them the way they look, right? Or have a mirror in front of them. Show them that your teeth are clenched and that your eyes are full of tears and that show them what it looks like to be just devastated, right? So they know what that looks like. They know what this feeling is. Oh, and then they look at you and you take a deep breath. You look at them in the eyes and you take a deep breath. It might take a couple times. You might sit there next to them and you'd be like, they can't stop crying. Be like, okay, I'm gonna just sit next to you while you cry. And you just keep taking deep breaths. You can hum. And they work themselves out, right? They see you breathing, they hear the noise. I like to do full sensory because some kids react to different sensories differently, right? And then now what happened is they're in the emotional state. They've calmed down enough that they're out of the fight or flight. Now they're in the emotion. That's when they start crying over getting hurt feelings. That's where the emotion really is. But that's when we sit there and we make calm things. We make connectedness. They want love there. So in the survival state, they're not looking for love or connectedness. They're too primitive at that point for survival. So what we do is we need to get them to the emotional state. We breathe, we hum, we make deep breaths, and then we get them to the emotional state. And then we identify, see that you were so sad. Is that what those big tears are? Yeah, mom, I am so sad. Oh, baby, tell me what made you so sad. Ugh, it's that acknowledgement. I see you. I hear you. I am connecting to you. Another deep breath. Let's work ourselves into the problem solving stage. What did we learn from that? We learned that what I look like when I'm upset. We learned that this is triggering to me. We learned that sometimes when I take deep breaths, I can calm down better. And then I can actually think to problem solve. The more we live in survival state, the more we go back to survival state immediately. So think about all those children who live in survival state and their first reaction is aggression, is that full on attack mode. That's their body not knowing how to be out of survival state because it's so practiced in being there. Emotional state, right? Somebody who's always emotional, they're always reactive. You have that's that social emotional state where that kid's always living in this emotions. That's because they don't know how to get out of that emotional state. So our connection on the outside creates more neural pathway connections on the inside. So the more you live in these states, the more we practice living in executive state, the more we'll automatically go into executive state. So it's all again about consistency and practice. To form connection to when we're in the emotional state and we're trying to get to the executive stage, this is the best way to do it. Eye contact, touch, presence, and playful moment. So it's that eye contact, it's that touch and that presence. And what I mean by presence is that you know when someone's looking at you and not just like eye contact, but you see them, they see you, you see them, and you feel it. And you know too when kids have it. When they see you, you see them, that moment, and then make a fart joke or blow bubbles with your mouth or something like that, or give them a little winky face or make a fart noise out of your mouth. And what they do is then they're like, and then they're like, what was that? Because they weren't expecting it. They weren't expecting you to be playful. They were expecting this big emotional thing about connectedness and all that kind of stuff. But what that playful does is it takes us out of that emotional state and it gives us this joy juice that grows our brain and takes us out of this fight or flight state, takes us out of this emotional state and brings us into executive state. This meaningful connection releases dopamine, oxytocin, and opioids. This is like a shortcut way to make yourself feel good and make the child feel good in front of you. Some emotions need to be processed and we need to sit in them and we need to really work through them. But sometimes we just need to shock ourselves out of that. And this is how we do it with children. Eye contact, touch, presence, playful jolt. And it's called joy juice and it just knocks you right out of it. Does it work every time? No. Do we need to practice it so that way we can get the kid used to it? Yes. It's again, consistency. Children do not enter this world with bad intentions. They do not come to wear us out, test our patience, or push us over the edge. They come to us with a need of love, connection, and belonging. So that is my presentation today. Does anyone have any questions? I know that was a lot of neuroscience, so if feel free to ask anything, actually. You guys have 5 minutes to ask anything if you want. Well, good. Well, thank you so much for coming today. And I am a mental health consultant again, and you can find us on fpac.org if you need a mental health consultant for your organization. Thank you guys so much for coming.
And thank you, Elise, for joining us and giving us all that great information. So, of course, you guys can also connect with your coaches if you have questions or reach out to me.
Mhm.
We'll make sure that you guys get connected to the folks that can best help you. So, and I got Hanae and Tracy, I got your emails and your name, so we'll make sure we get you the information as well. All right. Well, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.